All right, welcome to Reviews with Bro, where I will be reviewing your favorite albums, new and old. I wanted to start this series, this channel off with doing something completely brand new, and so something that was released January 17th of 2025 is an album called Mend by the band Eidola, and just some background to this album. It's the finale of a series of concept albums. So there's throughout their essentially their entire discography so far is one whole concept, one whole story, and this particular album is the second part, the second half to their previous album, Eviscerate. Now this album kind of takes on a little different stylistic approach, being a little bit more poppy and upbeat. It's a little less hardcore, but the influences are still clearly there. It's still very much a hardcore album. And I think this album has not just, great songwriting, great riffs, great meaningful lyrics, but it also has some incredible production as well. There's lots of different layers, lots of different things going on, but each element is so clear and distinct from each other. There's nothing kind of overlapping or muddying the sound of something else. Everything is, you can pick everything out individually. And a lot of these sounds are a little bit, I don't know how to like atypical and not exactly what I've come to expect from rock, metal, and core music, but that seems to be a trend that's happening all over the place with these particular genres. The drums range from very basic to very complex. There's lots of different sounding or effects to the guitar. They do have the heavy distorted guitars. Then there's like this neon string. I don't know if it's because they're using the actual like these acoustic guitars or if it's a pedal effect. But then there's also like these moments where it sounds a bit like Dragon Force's kind of video game sounding effects too. That they've become famous for in their guitars, and it makes for a really great atmosphere, and it runs throughout the entire album. And I think it's a great album for fans of both Dance Gavin Dance and Paramore. And I know it's kind of redundant to mention Dance Gavin Dance because they are a part of that record label hosted. I think it's their guitarist or singer. I'm sure somebody will correct me in the comments. And so let's get going with the track by track analysis. The album starts off with Brahman, Garden of Eden, uh, this incredible instrumental that starts out strong and sets the mood for the entire album. It reminds me a lot of Winter Sun's openers, particularly from Time 1 and Time 2. I'm a huge sucker for anything kind of like Japanese shamisen sounding effects. That's almost always going to be one of my favorites. There's also like these, I guess, horns. These horn instruments going on in the background. It creates a really unique atmosphere. Like that, like I said earlier, really sets the tone for the rest of the album. And it goes right into the song Prodigy. Let me tell you about a boy from Utah County. I think the song starts off a little shaky. Sounds a little too like neo soul for my taste. But when the chorus picks up or comes in, and the guitars start coming in a little bit more, heavier, I'm hooked. And it goes and it carries throughout the rest of the album with the rest of the song. And I think the breakdown, like guitar solos with the neon string sounding guitars, is also very tasteful and very well done, and probably my favorite moment on that particular song. The third song on the album is the Empire of Light. It starts off all right. I'm not a huge fan of when songs use this like clapping effect or clapping, like drums, especially in the year 2025. We should have left that behind in 2013. That should have been done and over with. I'm not sure why anyone's still doing that these days. It is a very overtired, overused kind of effect or sound. But when things pick up in the song, I'm jamming the rest of the way through. I love the riff that occurs throughout the song, and it goes from like the riffs go from very hardcore to like just straight out funk, and it creates this really cool, fun balance between the two different extremes. I also enjoy the vocal performances on this song, and as well as the guitar solos and the sound of the guitar during that solo. Fourth song on the album is My Father's House. Wasn't exactly my favorite song on the album. I think songs later on do what this song is trying to do, but better. And I'm usually not a fan of the slower tracks, the more ballady-esque kind of songs. Next up is the song Kaleidoscope, which was one of my favorites, one of my standouts, one of the songs that really stood out to me. I love this like stop and go aspect, and switches between this really slow, melodramatic, emotional verses, and it goes right into these very fast and hype choruses, and it just does that throughout the song. I love the kind of balance between the neon stringed sounding guitars going into the full distortion that we've come to kind of expect from this genre. The drums were also kind of stand out in the track. They were going all over the place. I don't recall their name at the moment, but he is a fantastic drummer. He knows exactly what the hell he's doing, and he's kind of like the glue that brings together the entire band and sound. And I also enjoy like this atmosphere created by the electronic sounds that are happening like in the background, just out of the focal point. And then of course the vocals are top notch. I love the clean and harsh vocals. There's the lead singer, and someone else in the band is doing the harsh vocals. And so yeah, it's just a great, fantastic song. Like I said, it's one of my favorites. Next up is A Pearl in a Dead Sea. I think the song is rather forgettable. I can't exactly recall much about the song whenever I think back to it, or if you're like, oh, did you listen to A Pearl in a Dead Sea? I'm like, I don't think I've ever heard that song before, even though I've listened to this album several times, from back to front. And kind of the next song is a bit in the same vein, Blood in the Water, but I do really enjoy that proggy intro. But I find myself that after the intro, once everything starts picking up pace, I'm mostly just waiting for the guitar solos that occur halfway through, and then after that I'm just kind of waiting for the song to end. But every album's gonna have its blemish. There are very rarely a 10 for 10 out of 10 ranked album where every single song is clear, distinct from each other, or absolute bangers. But it's a 48-minute album, so there's bound to be some, I guess, moments, not even just songs, but moments where I'm just gonna be like, we could wait for this the end, I suppose. And that leads me to the song Renaissance. As we sit and talk for hours, sipping coffee. I mentioned earlier ballads and slower songs aren't usually my thing, but this song, however, is my absolute favorite ballad. Not my favorite song on the album, but I really enjoy this album. The lyrics really stood out to me as well. I'm not the biggest listener, I guess, so to speak, of lyrics. They kind of go through one ear out the other. I'm mainly paying attention to the quality and sound of the singer's voice and the melody they're trying to carry throughout the song, and in conjunction with everything that's happening around it, kind of that's happening on top of. I think the singer has a really great voice, and he really shown on the song, especially since it's a more stripped down ballad. Ballads usually don't have too much going on musically, but the song was just kind of a piano and some really great atmosphere around it, and it really allowed for their singer to shine. And probably my favorite, and that kind of starts off my favorite like run of the album, with the next three songs. The first one being What It Means to Be Alone. Besides the opener, is my absolute favorite track on the album. It has this borderline like 80s synthwave that's kind of mixed with a bunch of modern elements and sounds added to it, and it becomes like its own unique beast. It's its own sound. It's not, just like an 80s copycat. They really did something unique with it, particularly with the drums. I think that added a lot to what made it stand out. And it's another song, as you could probably tell by the title of the song, it's another song where the lyrics kind of stood out to me. And I'm genuinely not sure why this, at least on Spotify, it has the second least amount of plays. It should be number one, absolutely. I just think they were in the bag on this one. And then what's next is Restore Me. It's another song featuring another artist, The After Hour. Although, to be completely honest, I don't know at what part of the song The After Hour takes place. I don't know what they really did on the song. It sounds completely still like Eidola, but that's, maybe I'm just ignorant. It starts off a little slow, but I really enjoy when it started picking up, and it never stayed at one place. It moved around, and I love songs that do that, like being taken on this not just like musical journey through all these different styles and sounds, but also emotionally, because each part has its own unique voice, and each part kind of becomes its own piece to me. And it's another song that, again, I'm not sure why it's at the bottom in regards to plays on Spotify. These three songs should 100% have the most plays. And the next one, Faustian Spirit, is it getting any better? Or does it feel like does have the most plays on the album, but that's because it was a single released before the album. So lots of people just had more time to spend with it than the others. And so, yeah, the Faustian Spirit, another top favorite of mine. It's a really fun intro that kind of comes right out the gate with it. And it also doesn't stay in one place and goes a bit all over. Probably my favorite production on a single song throughout the whole album. I loved all the different sounds and what I like to call like soundscapes. And I know that's kind of a made up word, but sometimes when talking about music, you have to make up these words, even if you sound super hippy dippy, which is one of my least favorite parts about talking music, because we don't quite always have words readily available to describe what it is we're feeling and hearing when it comes to music. And I just think everyone on the song is just in top form. Guitars are all over, the drums go hard, the bass is banging, and I think some of my favorite vocal performances are on this song. Next up, we have Godhead, the 12th song on the album, The Final Temple. Apparently, throughout their discography, within this concept of the whole story, there is like a mini series almost, dealing with temples. It's in the name. The Final Temples is the last one of that like a mini series, and it's perhaps my favorite guitar performance on the album. It ranges from these really intricate proggy lines into just straight heavy, good old hard heavy breakdowns, and it really covers the whole spectrum. They don't waste a single note, they don't waste a single bit of space. It's completely just chock full all the way through. End of days. And now we have the last song on the album, Revelation, the infinite beauty of oneness. Great song title, super over the top, melodramatic, metal hardcore sounding title. Some people may think it's cheesy. I love cheese. Sometimes you just want a big old bowl of queso to dip your chips in, and it has this really fun almost like pop punk start to the song that like makes me almost nostalgic, but yet also sounds like something I quite haven't heard before. And when it comes to, newer rock, metal, core music, it's very hard to really do that these days because a lot of it's been done before, but yet they still found something new to do with it. And it's a very, very strong end to an album. And I remember my first listen, going through it, going through the album, and then just like, wait, that's it? There's not more? Like, I just remember being so pumped up to have more to this album, and to keep listening to Eidola. That's it for the track by track. Overall, I would say my top three tracks are Brahmin, What It Means to Be Alone, and Faustian Spirit. I give this album like a 7.7 out of 10. It's a great introduction to a band I hadn't heard before, and I'm absolutely interested to get into more of them, specifically getting into this concept that now spans 6 albums. And so I'd love to know what your favorites were. I'd love to know any, what albums I should check out next, or that if I should start out with, the very first album and just go through the whole story, or if I should dip into Eviscerate, which I hear is a bit of a heavier approach to their sound. And that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed it.